What if I told you the U.S. Navy has been hiding warships in plain sight for over a decade and almost nobody noticed? Not invisible, not stealthy. Ships that can sit off the coast of Yemen, Somalia, or the South China Sea for months, looking like civilian traffic while launching Navy SEALs, interdicting weapons, and coordinating military operations. On January 11, 2024, one of these ships, the USS Louis B. Puller, launched a SEAL team to intercept Iranian weapons bound for Houthi militants. The mission succeeded. Two SEALs, Christopher Chambers and Nathan Gage Ingram, paid with their lives. But the bigger story went almost completely unnoticed. The Pentagon has built an entire fleet of ghost ships, and they are changing how America fights wars. Expeditionary Sea Bases, or ESB, are unlike any other warship in the U.S. Navy. At first glance, they are indistinguishable from the bulk carriers and tankers that dominate global shipping lanes. There are no imposing gun turrets, no angled destroyer profiles, no obvious military features breaking the silhouette. To an adversary scanning radar signatures or watching through binoculars, these ships simply disappear into the background noise of maritime commerce. This camouflage is not cosmetic, it is strategic. In an era where satellites track naval movements and social media can expose military deployments within hours, ESBs operate as ghost ships. They can position themselves near conflict zones, support covert operations, and project power without announcing their presence. By the time an adversary realizes one of these vessels is not just another commercial ship, the mission is already underway. The Pentagon calls it distributed maritime operations. The rest of us might call it hiding in plain sight. The concept emerged from a very practical problem in the early 2000s. The Navy needed platforms that could support mine-clearing operations, special forces missions, and sustained presence in the Persian Gulf. Traditional amphibious assault ships could do the job, but they came with two major drawbacks. Each one cost over $1 billion, and building them took years. The solution was as unconventional as it was brilliant. Instead of designing warships from scratch, the Navy purchased commercial Alaska-class crude oil tankers and converted them into floating military bases. These ships, originally built to haul oil from Alaska to the lower 48 states, were already enormous, sturdy, and designed for long-duration operations at sea. More importantly, they were cheap. An ESB conversion cost roughly $500 to $600 million, about a quarter the price of a traditional amphibious ship, while delivering roughly 70% of the capability. The first ship, USNS Montford Point, was commissioned in 2013. The Navy had found a way to expand its global reach without breaking the budget or waiting a decade for new construction. An Expeditionary Sea Base is a massive vessel, at 785 feet long and displacing 90,000 tons fully loaded. These ships are among the largest in the Navy, but size is not what makes them remarkable. It is what they can do. The conversion process transforms the original tanker into a modular military platform. The top deck becomes a massive flight deck, the third largest helicopter landing area in the entire U.S. Navy. Below that sits a cavernous mission deck, an enclosed space where troops can stage operations, maintain equipment, and prepare for missions regardless of weather. The ship can accommodate hundreds of personnel, store vast quantities of fuel and supplies, and operate independently for weeks at a time. But here is where things get legally interesting. ESBs can switch designations depending on the mission. Most of the time, they operate as USNS vessels, meaning they are technically civilian ships crewed by the Military Sealift Command. This allows them to blend into commercial traffic and avoid the legal complications that come with parking a warship in sensitive waters. But when necessary, they can be redesignated as USS warships, giving them full combat authority under international law. This legal gray zone is part of what makes ESBs so effective. They are warships when they need to be, and civilian support vessels when that is more convenient. The mission that night started like dozens of others. Intelligence indicated a suspicious dhow was transporting weapons from Iran to Yemen. The USS Louis B. Puller, positioned off the Somali coast, was the closest asset capable of intercepting it. Just after midnight, 9 Navy SEALs departed in 3 rigid hull inflatable boats, racing across rough seas toward the target. 2 helicopters provided overwatch. Drones transmitted real-time video back to the ship's command center. The SEALs reached the dhow, hooked their ladder, and climbed aboard. The crew was secured without incident. Then, disaster struck. One SEAL lost his footing and fell into the water. Nathan Gage Ingram, his teammate, immediately jumped in after him. The waves were high. The current was strong. Within 47 seconds, both men had disappeared. Despite an exhaustive search involving multiple ships and aircraft, neither Christopher Chambers nor Nathan Gage Ingram would ever be found. But the mission itself succeeded. The dhow was carrying advanced Iranian missile components, including propulsion systems, guidance electronics, and warhead materials destined for Houthi forces in Yemen. These were not crude rockets. They were the sophisticated missiles the Houthis had been using to attack commercial shipping and U.S. Navy vessels in the Red Sea. By intercepting them before they reached Yemen, the Louis B. Puller had likely prevented future attacks that could have killed dozens. The Houthis have spent years attacking ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. They have struck oil tankers, cargo vessels, and even attempted attacks on U.S. Navy destroyers. Yet, despite operating in the same waters, ESBs have largely avoided targeting. From a distance, an ESB looks exactly like a commercial tanker. It moves at commercial speeds, follows standard shipping routes, and does not broadcast the electronic signatures associated with warship. When thousands of legitimate tankers and cargo vessels pass through the region every month, picking out the handful of ESBs becomes nearly impossible without actionable intelligence. There have even been cases where Houthi militants falsely claimed to have struck ESB, likely because they could not verify which ships they were actually engaging. The confusion works in the Navy's favor. Every day an ESB goes unnoticed is another day it can conduct operations, gather intelligence, and support missions without interference. ESBs are not built for direct combat. They do not carry cruise missiles or advanced air defense systems. Instead, they serve as floating bases, platforms from which other forces operate. They can launch and recover Navy SEALs and Marine Raiders conducting special operations. They support a wide range of aircraft, including MH-60 Seahawk helicopters, MV-22 Ospreys, and CH-53 heavy lift helicopters. Their massive mission decks can accommodate armored vehicles, fast boats, and surveillance drones. They serve as command hubs, coordinating operations across hundreds of miles of ocean. But perhaps most importantly, they can do all of this for extended periods without returning to port. An ESB can loiter in international waters for weeks, providing persistent presence in regions where the U.S. does not have nearby bases or reliable allied ports. This endurance makes them ideal for sustained operations in places like the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the contested waters of the Western Pacific. Looking forward, the Navy is exploring even more capabilities. Future ESBs could serve as motherships for unmanned underwater vehicles and long-range surveillance drones, expanding their intelligence-gathering capacity. Some analysts have proposed dedicating portions of the mission deck to drone operations, turning ESBs into command centers for autonomous warfare. The value of ESBs became undeniable during Operation Prosperity Guardian, the multinational effort to protect shipping in the Red Sea after Houthi attacks escalated in late 2023. While guided missile destroyers handled the high-profile work of shooting down incoming missiles, ESBs operated quietly in the background, conducting the less glamorous but equally critical mission of interdicting weapons shipment. This division of labor made strategic sense. Destroyers are expensive to operate and designed for high-intensity combat. ESBs cost a fraction as much to run and can sustain operations far longer. More importantly, stopping weapons before they reached the Houthi proved more effective than destroying them after they had been fired. Airstrikes might take out a missile cache, but interdictions at sea prevented the weapons from ever arriving in the first place. The Louis B. Puller and other ESB demonstrated that you do not always need billion-dollar warships to achieve critical objectives. Sometimes, the most effective platform is the one your enemy does not even know is there. The U.S. Navy currently operates 6 expeditionary sea bases, each assigned to a different region based on strategic priorities. The USS Louis B. Puller operates primarily in U.S. Central Command, covering the Persian Gulf, Red Sea, and waters off East Africa. The USNS Herschel Woody Williams supports operations off West Africa, particularly counter-piracy and partner nation training. Other ESBs rotate through the Mediterranean, the Western Pacific, and other regions where sustained presence is needed. But full carrier strike groups are not justified. This global distribution allows the Navy to maintain eyes and capability in multiple theaters simultaneously without overextending its high-end assets. It is a quiet presence, but a persistent one. While ESBs were originally designed for operations in the Middle East, their strategic value extends far beyond that region. In the Western Pacific, where tensions with China continue to escalate, ESBs offer capabilities that traditional warships cannot match. China has invested heavily in anti-access systems designed to keep U.S. carriers and amphibious groups away from its coastline. But ESBs present a different challenge. They do not need to operate from vulnerable forward bases. They can blend into the dense commercial traffic, crisscrossing the South China Sea and Philippine Sea. And because they are not traditional combatants, their presence is less provocative than parking a destroyer group in contested waters. This makes ESBs ideal for distributed maritime operations. The Navy's strategy of spreading forces across wide areas rather than concentrating them in predictable locations. China's surveillance systems are optimized to track carrier groups and destroyer squadrons. Ships that look like civilian tankers disrupt that calculus. Chinese military analysts have taken note. Recent publications from the People's Liberation Army Navy suggest they are studying ESB concepts closely, likely evaluating whether similar platforms could serve their own strategic needs. The Navy's vision for ESBs extends well beyond their current capabilities. Proposed upgrades include dedicated launch and recovery systems for unmanned underwater vehicles, expanded command and control facilities for coordinating drone swarms, and enhanced medical facilities to support humanitarian and disaster relief operations. Some defense analysts argue the U.S. needs far more than 6 ESB. Estimates range from 20 to 30 platforms to adequately cover global commitment, particularly as competition with China intensifies and Middle Eastern operations continue. The low cost and relatively quick construction time make this expansion feasible in ways that traditional shipbuilding programs are not. The underlying philosophy is clear: cheap, flexible, and scalable beats expensive and specialized. They are not the most capable ships in the fleet, but they do not need to be. They fill the gap between high-end warships and logistics vessels, providing a platform that is versatile enough for dozens of missions, yet affordable enough to deploy widely. As warfare becomes increasingly dependent on drones, information networks, and distributed operations, the role of ESBs will likely expand. They represent a shift away from the traditional model of naval power, where a few extremely powerful ships dominate a region, toward a more dispersed approach, where many less visible platforms create persistent presence. On that night in January 2024, 2 Navy SEALs gave their lives, conducting a mission most people never heard about, from a ship most people did not know existed. The weapons they seized never reached Yemen. The missiles with those components would have never struck commercial vessels or endangered sailors in the Red Sea. It was not a dramatic air campaign. There were no headlines about precision strikes or strategic victories, just quiet, dangerous work conducted far from cameras and attention. And that is exactly what expeditionary sea bases were designed for. They do not make headlines. They do not win glory. They operate in the gray spaces of modern conflict, where persistence matters more than firepower and invisibility is more valuable than intimidation. These are not the ships that make headlines. They are the ships that make the mission possible. The next time you see footage of commercial shipping traffic in the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, or the South China Sea, remember that somewhere in that endless stream of tankers and cargo vessels, a warship might be hiding in plain sight. Because the most important stories are often the ones hidden from view. To keep uncovering the secret weapons and shadow conflicts shaping our world, make sure you join us for the next briefing.